Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online. And as you've heard in the past, we're brought to you in part by Real Screen Summit. If you're watching this on our webpage at westdoconline.com, go down to the bottom. There's a Real Screen icon there. You can click on it and get all the information for their upcoming events. Today we have a amazing short documentary that is on the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences short list. And it's best, I think, actually, that you see this film without knowing anything about it going into it, as I did. And it starts out as sort of a scary, what's going to happen here movie, and has a hard turn. And let's meet the filmmaker, Josh Seftel. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Hey, Chuck. Great to talk with you.
I always ask my guests first, where are they speaking from, and what city, or where are you right now?
I am in Koreatown in Los Angeles, in the Line Hotel, getting ready for our screening, our AMPAS screening at the Skirball Cultural Center. It's actually not just an AMPAS screening; it's a programmed event. The Skirball Cultural Center's philosophy and their theme is "Welcome the Stranger," and in fact, that is also the theme of our film. So we're excited to bring the film there.
Even though the title of your film is "Stranger at the Gate," which has it sounds like it could be a title of a B-title horror film in a way, right? But what is it? You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So the film is about a small mosque in Muncie, Indiana, which is a small town. And it's about the congregants of the mosque. And one day, this kind of scary-looking guy shows up, tattoos all over his arms, a U.S. Marine tattoo, skulls on his arms, shows up at their door, and he's scary, and he's pacing around, and he's not smiling, and they welcome him in, and they are kind to him, and they treat him with compassion. And later they find out he was there to kill them. He had come to do a reconnaissance mission and then blow up the mosque. He had already built a bomb. And I don't know if you want me to give away the whole story, and I'm happy to, but what happens is very surprising when they come face to face.
I don't think you should give it away too much. Yeah, that's why I said in the beginning, I think it's better in a way if you don't know anything about the film. And what's the length of the film? It's under 40 minutes. I know that because it's in a documentary short.
It's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes long. And I'll just say that it's a film about grace, compassion, forgiveness, and hope. So it's scary, but it's also I think it has a lot of uplift.
Let's take a look at the trailer.
When I first saw him, I remember saying, there's something not right with this guy.
It was a little scary.
He seemed to be like a redneck.
He was walking kind of fast, his head was kind of down, pacing back and forth.
I was hoping for at least 200 or more. Dead, injured.
You know, he thought he was doing the right thing.
He was at war with Muslims, in his mind.
When I tell people this story, they tell me that they don't believe me.
My dad calls my mom the Mother Teresa of the Muslim community, and it's definitely true.
I invited him over for dinner.
I couldn't help it except to make him feel from my heart that he is welcome.
I could never, in a million years, repay this community what they've given me.
What's the genesis of this? I mean, I was sitting here watching this film, and I'm thinking, how did this guy, who I know is headquartered in New York, and I know a couple more things about you, how did you end up in Muncie, Indiana, finding this incredible story, and telling this story? What was the process?
Well, to be frank, when I found this story a couple of years ago, I was feeling pretty depressed about our world. I was feeling hopeless. Like, there's so much division, there's hate crimes constantly, there's shootings. Where are we going? Where do we go from here? And when I came across this story about these congregants of this mosque who did this incredibly beautiful thing and changed fate. I mean, they literally changed the course of what was supposed to happen, which was they were in the crosshairs. They were going to be bombed, and they were able to change that through their own actions. I just felt like, man, if these people can change the course of things, if they can connect and build a bridge with their enemy, with someone that sees the world in the opposite way of them, then maybe anything is possible. It gives me great hope, this story. And so I wanted to share it with the world. And, at the time, I was working on a series of short films about American Muslims. And it's called Secret Life of Muslims. It's this series I've been working on for 8 years. And this is actually, this short, Stranger at the Gate, is the 25th film in that series. And the reason that I was making those films is I grew up in upstate New York in Schenectady, and growing up as one of the only Jewish kids, around, there weren't many of us, I got picked on. I faced a lot of anti-Semitism. Kids called me Jew kike, threw pennies at me. Someone threw a rock the size of a brick through the front window of our house, stuff like that. And that stayed with me. And after 9/11, when I saw my Muslim friends facing that kind of hate, I felt a connection to them. And that's when I set out to start making films about American Muslims. And so that's how the series started. And then after we had done it for a few years, we came across this story. And I knew that not only was it relevant to the stories we were telling about American Muslims, but it was relevant to our time right now, our time of division and hatred, and this idea that we can build bridges with each other and learn to talk to each other gives me hope, and it's a story that I really wanted to share with the world.
What casting director did you use to find the perfect star of your film, Mac McKinney? If you look at him and you say, yeah, that's the guy. I want him in the film to be the guy, right? Mm-hmm. And did you know that before you started the story, or did you just go out to Muncie and there he was, or what?
I knew that he was an incredible character. He's very charismatic. He's scary. He's also has a soft side to him. But it was really the members of the mosque, when I met them, that I said, okay, this could be a really great film. They are such beautiful, amazing people who really walk the walk. And we joke around that if we were all a little bit more like them, there's one person in the film named Bibi Barami. She's a, hijabi woman who is the president of the mosque. And she is just an incredible person who's, resettling Afghan refugees in her town. She has a nonprofit to help women in Afghanistan. She's a Afghan refugee herself. And she is just a beautiful person who leads with kindness and loves everybody. And people joke that she's the Mother Teresa of the Muslim world. And, we joke that we should make bumper stickers and pins that say, what would Bibi do? Or be like Bibi. Because I believe that if we were more like her and the members of the mosque, the world would be a better place. And that's part of the message that we're trying to convey in this film.
How did, to your knowledge, I mean, maybe this is an odd question, but Muncie, Indiana doesn't seem like the kind of place that would have a Muslim mosque in it. How did they end up in Muncie? Was it a?
It does seem
how
like
is there a community?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like an unlikely place for a mosque. It is actually, Muncie is, I don't want to sound too East Coast, but it's far out there. It's not near that much. But what is there is a university. There's a university called Ball State, and that university attracts a lot of people from around the world. There's professors, scholars, and students, and as a result, there is a rich Muslim community in Muncie, and there was a need for a mosque. So these folks who are the subjects of our film, the participants of our film, are at the heart of that. They started the mosque, and they're the heroes of our film. So there is this community, and it's very strong, and they're very well liked and very connected with the community. But there was this one guy, Richard McKinney, who wanted to kill them. And that's what our film is about.
Where can people see this film now?
The film is available on the New Yorker channels. It's a New Yorker documentary. So you can watch it on the NewYorker.com. You can also watch it on YouTube on the New Yorker website, on the New Yorker channel. So, and that, that was by design. We made this film to share it with the world. We made this film not to monetize it, but to make sure that people could see it everywhere and see it easily. Because to me, the message is so important. I just, this is my big project these days, is to get this kind of story out in the world and to get it to as many people as possible. When we showed the film to the members of the mosque, we finished the film, and before we released it into the world, we showed it to them, and I didn't know what they were going to think about it. They hadn't seen it. They knew a little bit of, we were filming with them, but they didn't know exactly what we were going to do with the footage. And when we showed them the film, about 80 people came and watched, and then when it was over, one man stood up in the back of the room and raised his hand, and he said, "I just want to say that this film should be required viewing for every American."
Did the people in the mosque know you were Jewish and care one way or the other? Or how did they react?
Yes, they did. And in fact, I led with that when I approached them. And Bibi Barami, who I mentioned before, who's the president of the mosque, when I first called her, she told me that she was thinking, like, what is this Jewish guy from New York calling me about? What does he want? And, and she thinks, we laugh about it. But when she heard my story about how, I faced anti-Semitism growing up, and how I wanted to, I want to make these films that address hate, she was very touched by it. And she helped embrace me and got the community to embrace my team when we came to film. And they were, not only were they supportive, Bibi is a great cook, and she actually cooked for our crew, made us meals, invited us over, took care of us throughout the whole process of making the film. So it was really quite nice and quite like a family, really. It was the spirit of the shoot is the same as the spirit of the film.
What's your background? How did you get into film in the first place? And
so I was pre-med, and my father was a doctor, and my dream was to go abroad and become a doctor, and then join Doctors Without Borders, travel the world, help people in need, heal the world. And after graduating from college, I took a year off before medical school, and I ended up going to Romania and making a documentary about the abandoned children of Romania. And this was in 1990, right after Ceausescu had fallen and communism was falling, and there were all these abandoned children, and over 120,000 in Romania. And I went and I documented them, and I lived in the orphanages, and I was learning how to become a filmmaker, but I've encountered this incredible story And I made a documentary called Lost and Found, which was on public television, and it was nominated for an Emmy. But more importantly, the PBS broadcast led to the American adoption of thousands of Romanian children. And, I was 22 years old. I was about to go to medical school. And I was like, wait a second. Like this filmmaking thing is pretty powerful. And maybe I could achieve my goals that I wanted to achieve, in Doctors Without Borders. Maybe I can achieve them through filmmaking. And so I tried it out for a while. I said, I'll give it a few more years. And I tried it out. And, that was 30 years ago. And now I think it's probably too late for me to go to medical school. But my hope is that, that my work in some small way will help to achieve those initial goals I had. And, not every film does, but a lot of them, I hope, are helping to make the world a little bit better in some small way. And I think that with this film, Stranger at the Gate, I really hope that it achieves some good in the world.
So did you just learn filmmaking on the job on your own, or how did you learn? Really?
I did. I borrowed a Hi8 video camera, which was a very new thing at the time, and people told me, it won't work. You're never gonna be able to do it. It's not. No one's gonna want to show film from Hi8. But it's all I could afford, and I did it, and it worked. And suddenly, everyone was shooting Hi8 films. I think ours was the first Hi8 documentary to ever be nominated for an Emmy, I was told. Now we've moved way beyond that. Most people probably don't even remember what Hi8 was, but it was, these little videotapes that were, at the time, seemed very high quality for a consumer camera, but now they look terrible when you look at them next to other things. But at the time, it was very exciting, and it opened up opportunities for me.
I've noticed at New Yorker, and I should have looked up the list of films that they have there, but I think that's pretty amazing. And so how did you get a relationship with the New Yorker? Have you done other films for them? And I mean, actually, now that I think about it, they had a film about a couple of years ago. I think my son Alex worked on a film that ended up on New Yorker about CTE, about high school football players playing, having brain damage and so on and so forth. And they just run the films on their site, right? And did they pick up the film, or were they involved in the making of the film, or how was that?
Yeah, the New Yorker has been really great, a great partner. They acquire documentaries every year. They acquire, I don't know the exact number, but I feel like it's more than a dozen. And they curate this series of New Yorker short films, short docs. They also do scripted and animated as well. But they have this documentary series that they've just been picking amazing documentaries. And I think if you look at the numbers, the New Yorker might be leading in the short doc category over the last few years. They might be leading in the number of nominations. I'm not positive, but definitely with the short.
Can you give us a little idea of what are the economics involved in making a film that you made, which is very slick and professional, high-end looking, not shot on Super 8 or, it looked great. So did you put out the money on your own? Did you have investors, or did New Yorker put up the money, or what? And can you give us an idea of what the budget is on a doc short these days?
Sure. We raised the money. We through financiers and mostly donations, honestly, and it was not a big budget. It was under six figures, and we went and we shot for several days in Muncie. And, it was, and then when we were finished, we brought a cut to the New Yorker and showed them, and they were very interested. And eventually they acquired the film, actually pretty quickly. And I think that's generally how it works with them, is that you make the film and then you bring it to them. I think there are some situations where they might commission films as well. But in this case, we brought them a near finished film.
It's interesting, you know, I just did another doc short, Filmmaker 38 at the Garden, which is one of your competition. And Frank Chi, I asked him the same question, and he said, well, we did all the shooting. I'm trying to remember what he said, 160 or 116 or $126,000 for the interviews, which, and of course the interviews look great, but I'm thinking, geez, there was like a dozen interviews in the film. Yeah, I remember back in the day for $126,000 you could make. Today, I mean, in some ways it's cheaper than ever because, you know, you don't have to buy film, you don't have to process film, you don't have to make work prints, you don't have to cut negative, blah blah blah. But you do have expenses. But you had recreations too, right?
I wouldn't call no. We didn't really shoot recreations.
What would you call it? There were shots that you did there that were obviously. What's a better word for it?
Yeah, because we tried hard not to. We really did not want recreation in this film. But what we did do is we shot these really epic interviews. You know, some of my interviews would last 5 hours. You know, we would just go and go and go, and we had multiple cameras. And I kind of thought of the interviews as verite. You know, I would wear a microphone. Obviously, the subject would wear a microphone, and we would capture everything. And I was looking for those moments of interaction between me and the subjects to use in the film. And when you watch the film, you'll see there are these moments where you hear my voice, and you see them reacting to my question, pausing, thinking, sometimes not even answering my question. And I feel like those moments are very telling and revealing about the characters in the film. And I love keeping things like that in the film. And, you know, with a film like this, where the story already happened before we got there, and there's no documentation of the story, it's a challenge to figure out how you're going to do this visually. And so we really leaned into those kinds of interviews. And then we shot a lot of drone shots, a lot of aerials of Muncie. And Muncie's a very interesting looking place from above. And, you know, part of that idea was, you know, this theme of surveillance, because you have this military guy who has this target in his crosshairs. So there's this surveillance theme, but there's also the eye of God kind of there. But for me, what I love about the drone shots is that it gives the viewer space to imagine the story, to picture it in their own mind. A little bit like listening to the radio. You know, you're looking from above down on this world, and you can almost see what's going on down there, but not quite. You're forced to imagine it. And, you know, I didn't want reenactments. I wanted the viewer to be able to picture the story themselves by watching the faces of my characters in their interviews, and by looking down through these aerial shots and trying to imagine what actually happened and what it looked like and what it felt like. If anything, they're overused, right?
Yeah, but they were very powerful and very useful. And it also kind of sends a message, if you have good-looking drone shots, that this is a professionally made film. It just looks like a real movie. And did you hire a drone person in Muncie, or did you bring your own drone, or how did you do? What did you do there?
We had so little money for this that everything we did was on a shoestring. You know, we were working 16-hour days. Our DP, Carl Schroeder, who's incredibly talented, you know, he brought this little drone that he had that he was learning how to use. And that's all we could afford. He's like, yeah, let me figure it out. We'll do it. And he did a great job.
How long was the editing process?
It was long. It was a hard story to crack. You know, we had all this great footage. We spent, I want to say, probably close to 7 months on a 29-minute film. You know, and we weren't working the whole time. We took some breaks to take a step away from it and then come back to it with fresh eyes. But our editor, Jeremy Medoff, he's such an amazing editor, and he brought so much to the story and to the language the language of this film is there's a lot of sound design and a lot of percussive sounds that I think really help capture the tension in the story. But there's also a lot of restraint in his editing. And, this could have felt like a Disney movie or something toward the end, but I don't think it does, because, it's a real story, and I think it needs that restraint to capture the gravity of it and not let it float away.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Westdoc. I enjoyed it, and I wish you you have a great screening tonight, and best of luck with the Oscars.
Thank you, Chuck. I really appreciate you having me on.